camera just a little bit here, buddy.
Nice. All right. What's up, stream?
Can you send it more line, or is this it?
That's at the highest spot.
Is it?
Yeah.
It continues.
That's what he.
That's where it goes normally?
Come on.
Yeah. Unless he changed it.
Even they aren't sure. Okay, let's do it. All right. Cool, cool. Hello, everybody.
Ready on the floor.
Ready on the floor? All right, let's do this. We're going to do the open real fast here.
Standing, please. In 5, 4, 3.
Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight President Trump saying he is ready to expand the war in Iran by bombing their civilian infrastructure, while at the same time saying he is, quote, pretty sure a deal is close to ending it. Meanwhile, both sides continue to mount attacks. We're going to have the latest from the White House. Then why is the president reversing course on Cuba, allowing a Russian oil tanker to reach the island? All right.
Reset prompter, please.
Okay.
Standing, please. In 5, 4, 3.
Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight President Trump is saying he is ready to expand the war in Iran by bombing civilian infrastructure, while at the same time saying he is, quote, pretty sure a...
Time ready?
Hi guys, we're shooting the open right now. It's gonna take a second. We're just trying to get the edit right here.
Here we go, Gotti. Ready?
All right, here we go.
In 3.
Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight President Trump saying he is ready to expand the war in Iran by bombing civilian infrastructure, while on the same my bad, that was mine. Sorry. Man, we'll get it eventually. Well, a lot of them, SML. Yes, that was pretty wild. I'll tell you guys about it in just a second.
Standing, here we go.
Here we go.
5, 4, 3.
Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight President Trump saying he is ready to expand the war in Iran by bombing civilian infrastructure, while at the same time saying he is, quote, pretty sure a deal is close to ending it. Meanwhile, both sides continue to mount attacks. We're going to have the latest from the White House. Then why is the president reversing course on Cuba and allowing a Russian oil tanker to reach that island? And the Trump administration is making good on its promise to start paying TSA workers, but as for the shutdown, it continues. In NASA, they are about to fly 4 astronauts around the moon and back without ever touching down. What to know about the Artemis? Yeah, I saw. So it was that the wrong? Yeah, no worries. If you want, I can speed up or I can slow down on any of them if we need to stretch the video. What up? This is how we make the open. Sure, no worries. You guys take your time. All right, chat, if you guys are watching and you're like, what the? This is the open. And the open is a very specifically timed part. It's the beginning of the show. Sometimes we have to do it live, but because there's so many edits and because there's so many tapes and because it's so fast, we usually try to pre-tape it. So right now at 30 Rock in New York, there's a team that is bringing in this feed from Los Angeles, and they are layering everything on. And so they're basically making that edit live in the control room, and then it'll play at the top of the show. So it's like the open is Anybody that works on TV knows opens are complex, and so that's what we're doing right now. Let me show you what it looks like here. We've got Levon on the Ronin. Then we've got good old George right here, making sure everybody's doing what they're doing. And then down there, slacking. What? That's Ryan, slacking like usual. So yeah, that's basically how we make the live television, actually the look live television for the top of the show, and then we go live. So we've got a bunch of stuff coming up today, and you guys tell me whenever. I'm ready to go. Just throw up the top. There we go. No, I think that's A4. So yeah, a bunch of stuff coming up. We'll be able to chat about it in just a bit. So here we go. Another one.
In 5, 4, 3.
Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight President Trump saying he is ready to expand the war in Iran by bombing civilian infrastructure, while on the other hand saying he is, quote, pretty sure a deal is close to ending it. Meanwhile, both sides continue to mount attacks. We're going to have the latest from the White House. Then why is the president reversing course on Cuba and allowing a Russian oil tanker to reach the island? And the Trump administration is making good on its promise to start paying TSA workers, but as for that shutdown, that continues. And NASA is about to fly 4 astronauts around the moon and back without ever touching down. What to know about the Artemis 2 mission, which, if all goes according to plan, will lift off in less than 48 hours. And some of the main architects of artificial intelligence are explaining what they've unleashed on the world in this new film, and even they aren't sure how it's going to end.
Your fear of AI is the collapse of humanity.
Well, not the collapse, the abrupt extermination. There's a difference.
Is that a keeper?
Sounds good.
That's a keeper. All right, that's the one. That's the one, guys. I think I messed up a teeny tiny bit, SML, but you know what? That's the way we do. That's how you know I'm not AI yet. Let's see here. Thanks so much, SML. What's up, Tina? How's it going? Hi, Reed. How is Russia? Reed is our man in Russia. Let's see. It's cool to learn about. Never thought about the behind the scenes like that. Oh, Zoe, what's up? We got a newcomer. Great. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the community. You can watch the news every single day. What's going to happen in just a little bit is you'll see an old school news show. Old school, like new school, old school. We try to keep the vibe a little bit more chill here on the West Coast. But it's going to look like the normal TV style studio, interviews, packages, like those kind of things. And then you're also going to have this two-way street on the stream. So I think we're the first to do it like this. You guys are in on the ground floor. I love it because we get to hear your guys' takes, questions. Here we go. Hey, welcome back. The countdown has started. We are less than 2 days away now from the launch of NASA's Artemis 2 mission. That 4-person crew is going to take off on that 10-day journey, looping all the way around Earth and the moon. And Tom Costello previews the first moon launch in over 50 years.
Ready for liftoff at the Kennedy Space Center.
Hey, let's go to the moon!
The Artemis 2 crew now in countdown mode. Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Cook, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen.
We are ready. NASA is ready. This vehicle is definitely ready to go.
Along for the ride, a stuffed toy named Rise, the crew's zero-G indicator.
And our buddy here named Rise was submitted by second grader Lucas Yee from California.
The original February launch delayed by a hydrogen leak and pressurization issue. Liftoff will mark the first time humans have ever ridden in the Orion space capsule, perched on top of Artemis.
And this is what will happen once in space. Take a look. You can
Oh,
see the
what a
Orion
cool
space
animation.
capsule
Look at
that will
this.
enter an orbit around the Earth, going around twice. And then it will
got the
head
coolest
towards the
toys.
moon, where then it will reach its furthest, or hopes to reach, the furthest the humans have ever traveled into space, 280,000 miles from Earth, something never before achieved. All of this will be accomplished in just 10 days. A mission that then paves the way for a future return to the lunar surface, and maybe a permanent
That is so
establishment
cool.
of a human presence on our own natural satellite.
It's a stepping stone to Mars, where we might have the most likelihood of finding evidence of past life.
And the Artemis crew will see a part of the far side of the moon that not even Apollo astronauts saw.
This is an exciting time, and it is going to truly test our mettle.
The first Canadian, first woman, and first African American to head to deep space.
It's about human history. It's the story of humanity, not black history, not women's history, but that it becomes human history.
And setting the stage for landing astronauts on the moon in 2028.
What a shot. What
So
a
this is the
shot.
first time NASA is sending astronauts into deep space since Apollo in 1972. And NASA says they will only go when they are 100% sure that it is safe, that the rocket is going to perform as planned and the astronauts will be safe. So far, the weather looks good. 80% chance of go on Wednesday, and we'll be watching very closely. Back to you.
We sure will. Fingers crossed. Tom Costello, thanks so much. And on Wednesday, we're going to have special live coverage of the Artemis 2 launch starting at 6 p.m. here on NBC News Now. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now. All right. There we go. So that's the end of the show. You guys saw the end of the show first. So we are going to Tetris that thing and then drop it in. It's literally like Tetris. But we Tetris that thing at the end of the show. So our show with us on the stream is probably going to end at like 5:50 local time here in California, 8:50. Anybody that's on the East Coast, I'm not even sure what time it is out in there in Russia, Reed. That is cool. Will that air on NBC News on cable? Like, will it be a special report? James, yes and yes. And it'll also be on NBC News Now, so like YouTube TV, wherever you watch, wherever you stream, we got it for you. What else? Let's see. That's going to happen Wednesday. 80% go for launch according to the weather. I got to say, though, that's the opening of the launch window. I don't know, who knows? Fingers crossed, everything goes according to plan, but it's space-time, and space-time can warp a little bit, if you get what I'm saying. So don't get your hopes up too high for a 1,000% definite launch. There could be all kinds of things. Anyway, let's see. What's up, SML? Zoe, I see this. Camera 2, this one, okay. We got Sean in my ear being like, hey, check out camera 2. You guys wanna see camera 2 too? Why, do I have like something on my face? Ooh, that does look really good, guys. This Artemis thing is great. Oh yeah, James, I was. You guys are asking about Tokyo. So Tokyo was wild. It was my first time going, and Tokyo is it's like visiting a different planet / the future. It is so, like, the thing that I was struck by, and I still remember the sound of it. You go walking around dusk or even in the morning, you can hear the footfalls of people running. That's how quiet it is. So I was in kind of like Midtown over by the Imperial Palace. And so, it's a financial district. Thank you so much, George. And so, it's not the same bustling tourist area that a lot of people, think of when they think of Tokyo and that crazy crossing, or Tokyo, like the subway terminal that is just crazy wild. But it was downtown Tokyo, and you could hear people running. Like, people they don't talk very loud on the street, if they talk at all. You go on a subway, no one's talking on the subway. You don't take a call. Most people are just minding their own business. I will say everybody there, very, very glued to their phones. But just everything is so much more efficient. They're so clean. The streets are immaculate. There's no trash cans around. It took me 4 hours to find a trash can, so I was just carrying my trash in my hand like an American. And it was incredible. And hi, what's up, Twitch? Yes. Wait, All right, we got Kevin in there too. We got TikTok represented. We got YouTube represented. Yeah, Tokyo is amazing. Guess what I did? You want to see? I'm not supposed to show anybody that. I'll show you. Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight President Trump saying he is ready to expand the war in Iran by bombing civilian infrastructure, while on the other hand, what I was doing in Tokyo.
Collapse of humanity.
Well, not the collapse, the abrupt.
Wild, right? That is the cast of the Super Mario movie, just getting ready for our interview, and it culminated in this. Benny Safdie, who is Bowser Jr. I mean, I spent like 6 hours trying to find a Game Boy. 6 hours trying to find a Game Boy all across Tokyo. Found one. Found Super Mario Land from like 1989. I think that's right. Super Mario Land. And yeah, anyway, found it and was stoked about it. And I was like, hey, I'll let you guys play it. Well, Benny Safdie won the competition that we had. And then he got the Game Boy. He, you know, obviously, it's Benny Safdie, Uncut Gems, you know, the smashing machine. Had to just pay tribute to the greatness. Gave Bowser Jr. my Game Boy. And all that's coming up on the Today Show tomorrow. So, yeah, it was pretty wild. Yeah, I did. That's right. Kevin, you know everything. That's wild. Sonic fan, nice. Hopefully they'll let me do that as well. Yeah, so I was doing a story on the new Super Mario movie for Universal Studios and the Today Show. So that's going to air tomorrow. That's so true, Zoyu. Should I call you Zoyu? I hope so. Let's see. Ben, thanks so much. I love your show too. All right, let's see what's coming up today. Where's Lisa? She's not even on here. Usually Lisa's up at the top. She's our executive producer, but she has been recovering at home. She's still working remotely, but yeah, usually she's in the control room in New York. I'm trying to be happy. Let's get out to NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Hake in Washington tonight. So Garrett, it seems like more mixed message with Tristan Harris. He's a founder of Center for Humane Technology. I don't know if you guys have seen any of his work or listened to his podcast, but he's in this new movie, the AI doc, which I think you should see. It is really good. You know how obsessed we are with the future of everything. And big thing that we watch for is the future of artificial intelligence. And this AI doc it does a really good job like breaking down what is AI, which we all pretend like we understand, and yet we really don't. And so it dives into that, and then it dives into like all of the existential dread and all of the problems that come with turning systems, big systems, self-correcting systems over to AI and trusting AI and racing towards artificial superintelligence or even artificial general intelligence in this kind of Cold War that we have going with all the other superpowers in the world. And then this guy has a baby in the middle of making this documentary, and he's like, oh, shit, like I have to make sure that this world is okay for my kid. And I think he calls it apocalyptimist, which is like if you have very young kids, that's what you are. You are seeing what's happening, you're sketched out by it, but like you gotta hold on to optimism because you can't be a parent of very young children without clinging to optimism with every fiber of your being. And so he explores, the potential upsides of artificial intelligence, but you gotta watch the movie, number one. And number two, we continue the conversation from the movie with Tristan, and it's, a little bleak, but important. So I hope you guys watch it, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Yeah, let's go back to the chat and read about Yoshi for a second. Yoshi, yes. Yoshi is in this one, and it's Donald Glover, and he's got and it's his son. And they were like, how are you? No, I asked him. It was me. I was doing the interview. I forgot about that. I was like, yo, Donald, how did you get your inspiration for Yoshi? And he's like, well, I try to channel my son. He's like, my son is very, very cute. It's like, so he was like, I'm just gonna try to be as cute as my son, cute as possible. And that's how he's got that Yoshi. They're just eating everything. It's a pretty cool movie. Let's see, Mario. Yes, that is the new movie. Get well soon, Lisa. We really hope. Aren't you worried about my kids and how they're gonna be affected? Non-stop. That's all I worry about. 90 seconds to the show.
2.5 to us, though.
Cool. All right.
104 at the top. B to G.
Let's see. I hope so. But I got to say, Bowser Jr., Tina, he brings it. Like, Benny Safdie has range. Like, that guy, he is just, I wish I could see, like, what he was like in the booth, where he was just, Bowser Jr. reminds me a lot of me. Yes, we should.
Kick off in 1 minute.
Definitely
2
should.
minutes to us.
That's a really good idea. 2 minutes, Bowser Jr. Oh, what's up, June? How are you? Maybe later this week, yes. No, I think that's a really good idea. We could try to do it tomorrow, too. I mean, if I would have thought about it earlier, or if I would have seen your comment earlier, maybe we would have tried to squeeze it in today because gas prices are huge. But yeah, the E15, I don't know if you're listening, Lisa, we should totally do something on the ethanol blend that's...
15 to our 1 minute open, sir.
Okay.
B to G eventually.
B to G. Okay, here we go. 15 seconds out. Ah! This is where we get nervous. Are you nervous?
I'm sorry?
Are you nervous? I get nervous.
You?
Mm-hmm. Always. Have a good show, everybody. Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight President Trump saying he is ready to expand the war in Iran by bombing civilian infrastructure, while on the other hand saying he is, quote, pretty sure a deal is close to ending it. Meanwhile, both sides continue to mount attacks. We're going to have the latest from the White House. Then why is the president reversing course on Cuba and allowing a Russian oil tanker to reach the island? And the Trump administration is making good on its promise to start paying TSA workers, but as for that shutdown, that continues. And NASA is about to fly 4 astronauts around the moon and back without ever touching down. What to know about the Artemis II mission, which, if all goes according to plan, will lift off in less than 48 hours. And some of the main architects of artificial intelligence are explaining what they've unleashed on the world in this new film, and even they aren't sure how it's going to end.
Your fear of AI is the collapse of humanity.
Well, not the collapse, the abrupt extermination. There's a difference.
And tonight, we start with more U.S. troops pouring into the Middle East so far. More than 50,000 American troops are right now stationed throughout the region, with 3,500 more arriving this past weekend alone, all while President Trump continues to insist that there is great progress being made in negotiations.
I would only say that we're doing extremely well in that negotiation.
Sir, could you foresee a deal in Iran this upcoming week?
I do see a deal in Iran, yeah.
Mr. President.
Could be soon.
But then today, he also issued what may be his biggest threat yet. Quote, if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island. That post making the role that oil plays in all of this extremely clear. And it turns out it is something that President Trump has been saying for almost 40 years. Take a look at this old clip from a conversation with Barbara Walters all the way back in 1987, way before he was president, that is going viral today.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How? How? I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
gonna have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it, and get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
All right, let's get out to NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake in Washington tonight. So, Garrett, it seems like more mixed messaging here. The president said negotiations are going well while also ramping up the American presence in the Middle East. What do we know about how talks are going right now and if they're actually happening?
Yeah, look, Gotti, this is good old-fashioned gunboat diplomacy where the president is pushing a diplomatic solution to this war, but also at the same time ramping up the military threat that exists here. The two sides don't agree on the idea whether there are talks at all, as you laid out. The Iranians say there's no direct conversations happening. The White House describes conversations as going well. They have agreed on the idea that there are messages being passed back and forth between different intermediaries, including the Pakistanis, and that seems to be, I think, something we can kind of land on as a baseline. But in the meantime, the White House has been really ramping up these threats to the point of threatening things like blowing up power plants or even water desalination plants that are typically considered war crimes outside the bounds of international law. And I tried to press Caroline Levitt on that at the briefing today. Listen to this exchange. Why is the president threatening what would amount to potentially a war crime with the U.S. military? And how do you square that with the administration repeatedly saying that the U.S. does not target civilians?
Look, the president has made it quite clear to the Iranian regime at this moment in time, as evidenced by the statement that you just read, that their best move is to make a deal, or else the United States Armed Forces has capabilities beyond their wildest imagination, and the president is not afraid to use them. That's not what I said, Garrett.
So, Gotti, after all that, I don't know what the president will or won't do, but the sense that I got is that this is an effort by the White House to sort of jack up the rhetorical pressure as high as it will go on some of these issues to try to squeeze Iran into these talks, such as they are, as much as they can.
Yeah, and Garrett, I mean, in a separate interview, we heard Trump tell the Financial Times, to be honest with you, my favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran. I know he's been claiming victory already. Then we've got this viral video that's circulating. I'm sure you've seen it, where he's talking to Barbara Walters decades ago. That seems like a common theme here, right?
It's more than a common theme, Gotti. I mean, I'm sort of a student of Donald Trump in this job, and this is actually one of the issues on which he has been the most consistent across the length of his entire public career. The idea of taking the oil from Middle Eastern countries, whether it's Iran or Iraq before it, during the U.S.'s involvement in various wars in Iraq, this is as central to the way he thinks about governing and diplomacy as are the tariffs. It's foundational. He's been talking about it since the early to mid-'80s, when he first started thinking about running for office. And so I don't know how feasible it is, how seriously the plans exist to potentially try to seize Iranian oil. That would take a lot of U.S. presence on the ground in Iran in a very dangerous neighborhood. But does Donald Trump really want to do it? I think the answer across the last almost 40 years is an unequivocal yes.
Yeah, first there's an idea, then there is a plan. I mean, meanwhile, we also see Ukraine coming up more and more in what's been happening in the Middle East. In fact, Zelensky, I believe he was in Doha, talking about how he sees Russia's role in all of this, right?
Yeah, interestingly, he is in Doha and in these Gulf countries to try to sell some of these Gulf countries Ukrainian-built anti-drone defenses. The overlaps in this war has been fascinating, where you had early on in the war Russia using Iranian-built drones to attack Ukraine. Now Iran is using those same types of drones to attack the Gulf countries. The Ukrainians are the experts in anti-drone technology, and Zelensky has been on a bit of a sales trip around the region trying to sell that technology and also sort of wake up the rest of the world to the idea that Russia has its own way of benefiting from the Iranian war, as he laid out to our colleague Ralph Sanchez. Listen to this.
Do they help Iranians? Of course. How many percent? 100%.
You believe Russia is actively helping Iran target American forces in the Middle East right now?
I think that in Russian interest to help Iranians, and I know that they share information.
Gotti, whether or not their interest really is to help the Iranians or to help Russians by sort of stirring up trouble here, keeping the American focus off of Ukraine, it's hard to say. But I think Zelensky is astute to be giving this message to American media in the Middle East during this war.
Standing, sir. 5, 4, 3, 2.
And pausing on oil just for a second here, from the very start, the Trump administration has said that Operation Epic Fury was partly about nuclear weapons, right? Something that the White House press secretary repeated today.
4, 3.
Okay, logistically, though, what does that mean? How could that happen? If it's not a deal, where is Iran's stockpile of about 440 kilos of that 60% enriched uranium? And how would a country like the United States or Israel go about seizing it by force? Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, right now the president is weighing a military operation in Iran that would extract nearly 1,000 pounds of the uranium if it is found. So let's bring in NBC News military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Colonel, great to see you. This uranium, do we know right now where it is? And is it possible that it's buried under a literal mountain of rubble? And what is the first step for military planners here?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there, Gaddy. We think we know where it is. At least what's in the public sphere is that this uranium is located in one of those sites that we bombed back in June of 2025, Nahanz. So this was an uranium enrichment site that we bombed in 2025 and have since really not engaged with it since. Now, we think that's where the uranium is. If the uranium is there, then comes the problem of extracting the uranium from that site. Now, there's two other things we have to worry about. Number one, is the uranium easy to get to, or is it buried deep below ground in tunnels that have been collapsed by our heavy-duty bombs that we bombed with back in June of 25? So there's two other problems they have to figure out. If they're buried deeply, or if they're easy to find, either way, we have to then send troops into Iran to extract that material. That's a complicated and dangerous mission, Gotti. These sites are about 400 miles inland, right, from the shore. So we have to project our forces about 400 miles. They would have to set up a perimeter around the site, be willing to withstand attacks from the Iranians, missile strikes from the Iranians, drone strikes from the Iranians, all of that. Then they would have to dig the stuff out of the ground, extract it, and then they have to exfiltrate. They have to leave. So it's a complicated and difficult operation, Gaddy.
Yeah, and again, not to drill too much down on the logistics here, but just hearing you describe that, we think so often special forces, people just go in, soldiers on the ground with guns. What you're talking about is heavy equipment, right? Containment for nuclear, material, and then loading that onto aircraft, U.S. aircraft, and then flying it out somewhere safely, all protecting U.S. soldiers while also protecting them from, radioactive material. That sounds like one of the most complex military endeavors I could ever imagine here.
Yeah, I think it will be exactly that, extraordinarily complex military endeavor. We have troops, we have special troops in the U.S. military who are trained to handle uranium, and we even have a more elite group of special operators who have specifically been training how to get uranium out of Iran. So we do have some very highly skilled, very highly trained personnel who know how to do this. The problem is getting them there, getting the stuff dug out, getting it loaded, and getting it exfiltrated out. And that's a long process. If it could take, and it theoretically could take several days with excavators and bulldozers and all the different earth-moving equipment, possibly even the need for demolition, to get into those potentially collapsed tunnels and then extract this material. Now you got to feed these guys. You got to make sure they have enough ammunition. You have to logistically support them all the while they're on the ground. And oh, by the way, Gaddy, last thing, they're sitting there, and it's not like they're in an aircraft flying, at speed. Right. It's not like they're on a boat moving around the ocean at 30 knots. They are sitting ducks for any attacks the Iranians want to send.
That does not sound like a 20 or 40 or even like a 100-person mission here. This sounds more like hundreds or potentially like thousands, yeah, right?
I expect just the, to use a cliche, the boots on the ground portion would certainly be around 1,000 people, I think, just to create the protective barrier around the facility, and then your special operators to do the work.
And Colonel, one more question, if I may. Could you just like bury it on itself and then, just continue to bomb it into, a mountain of rubble and leave it? Like, is that an option, or does this need to be extracted one way or another?
I think you have to extract it one way or another. I think you have to extract it because you never can be certain. And the one thing I think that no one wants is an Iran with, that's now angry and upset and still in possession of nuclear material. I just don't. I don't see how that risk could potentially be worth it.
Colonel Steve Warren, really appreciate your insight, as always. Thank you so much for being with us. And all this instability in the Middle East right now, it might seem far away, but anyone who's filled up their car with gas recently knows it is having a huge impact on our wallets. NBC's Brian Chung takes a look at how rising prices and falling stocks are playing into this.
Hey there, Gotti. Well, mixed messaging coming from the president, leading to mixed results on Wall Street. The president posting on Truth Social that on one hand, he said there was great progress with Iran, but then on the other hand, he said that if those talks don't lead to positive developments, then he threatened to obliterate major energy facilities in Iran. So it's a glass half full, glass half empty situation for investors to try to parse through. And it seemed like they couldn't figure out which side was more convincing to them in terms of where to put their money. You had the Dow Jones on one hand ending the day positive, about 0.1% higher from where it closed on Friday. But the S&P 500 fell 0.4%, getting a little bit closer to the 10% mark for a correction. Again, that's when markets fall by 10% from their most recent highs. The Dow Jones and the NASDAQ already hit correction territory last week. But the overall story does remain the volatility out of the Middle East, with crude oil prices continuing to climb today. Crude oil prices in terms of WTI, that's a U.S.-based benchmark, ended the day up above $102 per barrel. That is the first time that barrels of oil and WTI have closed above $100 since 2022. Certainly not a good measure on that front. And all of this underscores how this geopolitical uncertainty out of the Middle East, which began as a short-term flare-up in geopolitical tension, could quickly turn into a big story that could affect not just the United States, but the global economy. There's now the OECD, an international body, saying that global inflation could be higher as a result of this, which could tilt some central banks like the Federal Reserve into potentially raising interest rates. We weren't even talking about hiking interest rates prior to a few weeks ago. Fed Chair Jay Powell did appear in public today. He didn't answer any questions over what the Fed's move might be going forward, but he did say he's watching attentively to what's going on with Iran to see whether or not the Fed needs to adjust here. But again, all of this underscoring just how uncertain things are, not just in the Middle East, but down here on Wall Street as well. Gotti?
Yeah. NBC's Brian Chung on Wall Street. Brian, thank you so much. And staying on oil, a Russian tanker, and this is quite the plot twist. A Russian tanker carrying about 100,000 tons of crude pulled into Cuba today, and despite the Trump administration's blockade on that island, President Trump seems okay with this ship. Now, just 11 days ago, if you remember, the Treasury Department issued a memo making it clear that Cuba was not allowed to take in any Russian crude. But then last night, the president said this.
Do you worry that that helps Vladimir Putin, though?
Doesn't help him much. If he loses one boatload of oil, that's all it is. It's fine. If he wants to do that, and if other countries want to do it, it doesn't bother me much. I'd prefer letting it in, whether it's Russia or anybody else, because the people need heat and cooling and all of the other things that you need.
The people need heat and cooling, and those daily blackouts in Cuba, the severe gas shortages, the uncertainty, those are the result of the United States cutting Venezuelan oil off to that island after that extradition, that imprisonment of Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro back in January. So what is going on? What does this mean going forward? Is there a U.S. blockade to Cuba? The president there saying that he seems okay with other countries shipping oil to Cuba. What's the strategy here? What is literal? What is figurative to try to help us understand this. Let's bring in NBC News political analyst Carlos Curbelo. Carlos, real quick, I want to play a little bit more of what the president said over the weekend about Cuba, because context is everything here.
Cuba's a mess. It's a failing country, and they're going to be next. Within a short period of time, it's going to fail. And we will be there to help it out.
Okay, so there's that, and then there's what you just heard. Carlos, what's the strategy here?
Well, Gady, I think that's the point. What this has done is it has raised a lot of questions about where the administration is going with this Cuba policy, because everyone understood some weeks ago that this was going to be a maximum pressure campaign against the Cuban government. Very clearly, the United States is trying to pressure the Cuban government, force them to make changes, perhaps force Cuban leader Miguel Díaz-Canel to step down. However, now with this decision to allow the Russian tanker to deliver fuel to the island, it really puts into question that strategy. And the president also said that other countries should feel free to do the same. This after he's been prohibiting Venezuela and Mexico from delivering fuel to the island. So this raises a lot of questions. This tanker getting to Cuban shores, it's going to provide maybe a little bit of relief for the Cuban people, Gady, but I think the ones who will benefit the most is the government. They're going to use this very limited supply to fuel their police vehicles, their military vehicles, everything that they need to stay in control of the island.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we've talked so much about the United States allowing private oil in, the United States oil in, to help prop up that small private sector as a competition to the communist government there. Now we see this, like, first of all, how is that plan working? Isn't this Russian oil kind of the opposite of that? And that setting up a competing center of power, like, is that playing out the way that the United States and the administration has hoped it would?
Well, look, there's no question that the Cuban regime is under a lot of pressure. There have been protests in Cuba almost every night for the last few weeks. In one instance, Cubans burned down a Communist Party office, something that's very rare in Cuba to see that kind of activity from the people. So there is increased pressure on the Cuban government. The Cuban government is in dialogue with some American officials. But again, this here is a breath of fresh air for that regime that the Trump administration has been insisting has to leave Cuba, has to abandon power in Cuba. So, Gady, this is not only, you know, a mixed message for people here in the United States, but also for other countries, right, who now may want to come to the aid of the Cuban regime. So this situation in Cuba is in flux. And apparently, the United States posture towards Cuba is also in flux. It'll be interesting to see Cuban-American members of Congress, how they react to this, because the idea has been that the United States will do everything possible to increase pressure on the regime.
Yeah, big shadow fleet out there, maybe now possibly coming out of the shadows. Carlos Curbelo, your analysis on this is always spot on. Thank you so much for being with us. And the DHS shutdown, it is likely to drag on as both the Senate and the House are out of town for the next 2 weeks. Today, it marks 45 days of this funding impasse, making it the longest partial government shutdown in history. And last week, the House passed that short-term bill to fund DHS entirely, but basically, it has no chance of making it through the Senate, with Democratic lawmakers calling it dead on arrival. And as you can imagine, a lot of people are saying they are fed up with all of Washington.
I don't understand why the government is shutting down, but on the other end, they use sideways to go faster than regular people. That's not fair. Why they are different than us?
However, the main ones that need to have their check stop is Congress until you make a decision. You don't get to go on vacations and do all of these things while these people are here suffering.
Well, Gady, this DHS shutdown is already the longest for a federal department in U.S. history, breaking a record set just months ago in the wider government shutdown. And as of today, there is no apparent path to a deal. The House and Senate have both adjourned for a 2-week Easter recess after the two chambers passed conflicting bills, neither of which had the support of the other chamber after an unusual communication breakdown between Republican leaders. And President Trump's role in all of this has been a real mystery. He didn't comment publicly on either bill last week. He initially led Senate Republicans to believe he supported their version to fund all of DHS except ICE and CBP before it passed the chamber unanimously. Then Speaker Johnson said hours later that Trump supported the competing House bill, which funded all of DHS for 60 days and passed mostly along party lines. And since then, there's one thing President Trump has been clear on. Take a listen.
It's a shame. They should really just go to a filibuster. They should terminate the filibuster, and they should vote. That's what I think. Look, I think the Senate is playing it too soft. The Republicans are wonderful people, but we're dealing with very sick individuals. The Democrats are sick. There's something wrong. They're like terrorists, and we have to protect our country.
In other words, the president's central demand is to nuke the Senate 60-vote filibuster rule and pass a bill without Democrats, which also happens to be the one thing Senate Republicans have insisted they won't do, no matter how much he pressures them, because too many of them believe the legislative filibuster protects them in the long run. So the mystery remains. What kind of DHS funding bill, or perhaps narrower TSA bill, can Trump support that also gets enough votes from Democrats to pass the Senate? For now, the administration is claiming executive authority to pay TSA officers, which could temporarily ease some of the extreme delays at airports, but it's unclear how long that can last without Congress passing a law. And currently, there's no indication that they'll return early from Easter recess. Gotti?
Sahil Kapoor, thank you so much. Meanwhile, what is going on right now at the airports? Well, there could be some light at the end of the tunnel. Today, travelers reported that security lines are much shorter and actually moving as TSA officers are getting paid and back to work, like Sahil mentioned there. But is that all just temporary? NBC's Priscilla Thompson is at the airport with more.
Tonight, a welcome sight for worn-out TSA officers and weary travelers.
What are you seeing right now?
Not that long, not as long of a wait as I expected.
In Atlanta, Baltimore, New York, and across the country, vanishing airport security lines.
What do you see?
It's looking great.
At Houston's Bush Intercontinental, wait times that topped 4 hours for days, now down to just minutes. All as those dollars are finally depositing into TSA officers' bank accounts following 6 weeks of working with no pay. DHS confirming most TSA employees received at least 2 full paychecks today, after President Trump ordered the use of existing funds to pay them. Still, it's a temporary fix as the shutdown of the Homeland Security Department enters a 7th week. House Republicans on Friday rejected a bipartisan Senate deal to fund all of DHS except for ICE and Customs and Border Protection.
All 100 of us voted before we left to fund everything in Homeland Security except ICE and CBP. Speaker Johnson has refused to take up and pass that bill. That's why there's still a problem.
Democrat members of Congress are more than happy to put your safety at risk because they oppose the president's and his administration's efforts to enforce our nation's immigration law.
Now, lawmakers are out of session for 2 weeks as the shutdown drags on. Meanwhile, TSA officers have worked more than half of the last 6 months without pay during 3 separate government shutdowns. Since this shutdown began, more than 500 have quit the job entirely.
People will look at this and say, do I want to be in federal service?
Priscilla Thompson, thank you so much. And still to come, don't go anywhere. Up next, more on this fiery Delta flight from Sao Paulo to Atlanta that looked like any passenger's worst nightmare. Inside the terrifying moments and how it managed to land safely. And later this hour, Artemis looks like a go. The SLS and the Orion are on the pad. Astronauts are ready, and for the first time in more than 50 years, humans might see the far side of the moon. That's ahead, so stay tuned. $90 seconds. Cool. See reverse 90 seconds. All right, chat. What do you guys think? Let's see here. Let me just double check. 2 hours. Those paintings. Okay.
And 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, sorry. What's up? How much will it be to replace the equipment infrastructure in Iraq that Iran hit? Very good question. I don't know. Hello. See Bubs? See Bubs. Hello from New Mexico. Hi. Where can we watch the launch? NBC News Now. We're going to have it. I think Tom is doing a special. Then I'm picking up this special. Tom Costello is going to be out there. So, yeah, we're going to go super hard on Wednesday. Fingers crossed that the launch goes on Wednesday.
30 seconds.
But, yeah, we are prepped. Mike Massimino, one of my favorite astronauts. He's going to be with us. We're going to have all of the experts. Everyday astronaut possibly is going to be with us, too. He's one of my favorite, space communicators. If you guys watch his stuff on YouTube, amazing. Here we go.
5, sir. 4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. It was a high school teacher in Texas. It was shot by a student this morning. This happened at Hill Country College Preparatory High School just outside of San Antonio. And police say the 15-year-old boy shot himself after opening fire on the teacher. He died at the scene. The teacher was sent to a nearby hospital with unknown injuries, and all of it is still under investigation. And Israel's parliament has passed this law making the death penalty the default punishment for West Bank Palestinians that they convict of what they call nationalistic killings. Now, that legislation will also allow Israeli military courts to impose a death penalty in addition to life in prison. All of that is expected to take effect within the next 30 days, but will only apply to future cases. And a Disney cruise ship terminal in San Diego was temporarily put into lockdown after a bomb threat was reported early this morning. Harbor Police and the United States Coast Guard swept the terminal. They didn't find anything. And after a 2-hour-long delay, passengers were allowed to leave the ship. And thieves broke into a museum in northern Italy and allegedly stole 3 paintings worth millions of dollars. Italian police say it happened at a private museum in the city of Parma on March 22nd. Local reports say that heist took less than 3 minutes and the thieves escaped through the museum gardens. And more than 400,000 Kit Kat bars were stolen after a truck carrying a shipment disappeared during some transport in Europe. The 12-ton load was traveling from Italy to Poland when it went missing. Kit Kat says the stolen chocolate could end up in unofficial resale markets, but the investigation into who has all that chocolate is ongoing, and I bet police are waiting for a break in the case. And out in Milwaukee, police have released this new body cam footage from this shooting earlier this month. The police officer is seen hanging off of this moving truck for several blocks. He tries to get the driver to stop, threatens to shoot him, and NBC's Maggie Vespa walks us through that video.
In Wisconsin, a Milwaukee police officer clings to a moving truck as body and dash cameras roll. The video, at times blurred by police, shows the officer drawing his weapon, his frantic partner following after watching them take off.
My partner's on the side of a flatbed. He's going about 30 miles an hour.
It all started the morning of March 12th. Watch as an officer approaches the white flatbed, looking, investigators say, for 35-year-old Jonathan Otto.
He's in the back. Get out! Stop the car!
Otto takes off, a woman riding in the passenger seat. Wisconsin's Department of Corrections saying he'd missed multiple parole appointments stemming from a prior charge of fleeing or eluding an officer when they learned of assault and strangulation allegations against him.
Otto, stop!
The officer hangs on for roughly 2 minutes, warning he'll shoot.
Stop it, Otto! Before I shoot you!
Suddenly, you hear him say,
"Are you done?"
Then he fires the fatal shot. Otto was killed, his family outraged.
I feel like he executed my son. I mean, yes, he was fleeing, but absolutely there was no reason to shoot him.
Police say the woman who was in the car is unharmed, and the officer who had minor injuries is on leave pending an investigation.
Maggie Vespa, thank you. Now to this terrifying sight for passengers on this flight to Atlanta. Delta Airlines, this plane caught fire just after taking off from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Morgan Chesky has the details.
Terrifying moments on board Delta Flight 104. Inside the plane, you can hear passengers' fear. After a fireball engulfed a jet engine just seconds after takeoff, seen in this sped-up video. Wow. The Atlanta-bound Airbus 330 departing from Sao Paulo, Brazil, with 14 crew and 272 passengers on board.
Delta 104, Mayday, Mayday, where's fire rescue?
This video appearing to show sparks before fiery streaks billowing out of the plane's left engine. John Cox is an NBC News aviation analyst.
In that first 60 seconds, when the engine starts throwing flames and you have that initial mayday, what is the pilot's priority?
First and foremost, the pilot priority is to maintain control of the aircraft. The airplane's climbing away normally, and you can see the airflow distortion begin because you see those fireballs come out the back end. That says airflow distortion.
Tonight, Delta sank Flight 104 returned to the airport soon after takeoff Sunday evening, following a mechanical issue with the aircraft's left engine, adding it landed safely. We're also learning more about the deadly collision in New York last week between an Air Canada jet and a fire truck. The family of flight attendant Solange Tremblay posting this photo from the hospital. Tremblay now recovering after she was ejected more than 300 feet from the wreckage.
And tonight, with the cause of that engine failure still under investigation, some of those passengers are still waiting to get home safe.
Morgan Chesky, thank you so much. And still to come, what happens when facial recognition goes very, very wrong? Well, a Tennessee grandma is now demanding justice after she was sent to jail for a crime she says she didn't commit. That story is coming up, so stay tuned.
Clear. Away. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. We got 2 minutes, George? 2 minutes. That's time for some questions, right?
Yes.
Or comments or whatever you guys want to do. Uh-oh. TikTok timed me out over here. Ignore limit for today. I try to limit my time on social media, and sometimes it kicks me out in the middle of the show. Let's see. I see a lot of different takes on that police story, and respect everybody saying what they think. Let's see. 2 minutes. Yeah. Thanks so much, Lady in the Bottle, for sharing this stream. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love doing the news like this. We, for so long, have just done the news into the void with these cameras and being like, well, you know, somehow this is getting into people's homes or their cars or wherever they're watching, subway. But it's just so nice to spend this hour with you guys. So thank you guys. Let's see. So now we're going to go into this AI case gone wrong. And then we're going to be talking to, if you guys have heard of that AI movie, the AI documentary, it is really, really good. So I just watched a copy of it today, and wow, like it's like Don't Look Up, but for AI. And we are going to also be talking about Artemis 2. That's coming up as well. This is George standing in my spot.
Hey, 30 back.
He's going to steal my job.
Okay, got it. Please. Thank you.
All right, here we go. On Wednesday, Jay, on Wednesday. We can't wait. On Wednesday is when the window opens, the launch window, but.
10. There you go, Gotti, standing please. In 5, 4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. Now to this scary case of AI gone wrong. A grandmother in Tennessee arrested and detained for months after a facial recognition program flagged her for bank fraud in North Dakota, even though she's never even been to that state. NBC's Kathy Park has that story.
Just over 2 minutes here, sir.
Was babysitting in Elizabethton, Tennessee last July when armed federal agents showed up and arrested her. More than 1,000 miles away, the Fargo and West Fargo police departments have been investigating a string of bank fraud incidents where they say a suspect was using a fake military ID to withdraw thousands of dollars. And AI software known as Clearview AI was used to help crack the case, or so they thought. West Fargo investigators said the technology identified a potential suspect with similar features to Angela Lips.
They, through their AI system,
made that identification of Ms. Lips. They forwarded that information to our detectives, who then assumed wrongly that they had also sent in the surveillance photos with that photo ID.
Lips, who says she's never been to North Dakota, was arrested for the crime, spending months in jail before an attorney was able to use bank records to prove she was in Tennessee the whole time.
They charged her and issued a nationwide warrant based on extremely limited evidence that didn't connect her to the crime and didn't address basic questions. They dragged her to North Dakota. They weren't able to connect the stolen money to Angela in any way.
Ultimately, the charges against Lips were dismissed.
How rare is something like this?
Unfortunately, it's not rare at all. For many places, it's a Wild West. And in the absence of strong rules and guardrails, you see mistakes like this because there simply isn't a proper set of procedures for how you're supposed to handle these new technologies.
Clearview AI says its technology generates leads. It does not make identifications, draw conclusions, or recommend arrests. Police in Fargo say they're working to update its policy on the use of AI and facial recognition tools, and that the investigation isn't over.
We're happy to acknowledge when we make errors, and we've made a few in this case for sure.
Meanwhile, Lips says that one mistake cost her everything.
Wow. Kathy Park, a fascinating story there. Kathy, thank you. And coming up in the future of everything, this new documentary is asking the big questions about AI. For real, like how does it work? Why are some of the people that built it worried that it could be the end of our civilization? And how are we supposed to be optimistic if we have kids? Stay tuned to hear all about it. Wow. All right. We got 2 minutes. Let's see here. Wow. RCC, RCC. Estoy viendo esto de México y usando Google para la traducción. Wow. ¿Y cómo sale? Is it good? Does it work? Bridge of Fools. What the F? I work in immigration and I'm noticing mistakes this last year involving AI tool too. Tell me everything. Like, tell me, yeah. What, like what? Like, what are you seeing? Let's see here. Yeah, G7 over Lebanon. Interesting. Yep. And I mean, we're seeing it in Ukraine too. We're going to talk about that with Tristan Harris in just a second here. Jay, very, very interesting point there about law enforcement. I bet it is, Kat. It's a depressing time in news as well. Let's see. SML, because some people... Yeah, perfecto. Es en vivo. ¿Y qué pasa si hablo en español con el Google? I want to know what happens if I start speaking in Spanish and you're translating already English to Spanish. Does it work? Again, best of times, worst of times. You've got like a babblefish in your ear. It's crazy. Let's see, 30 back. Kids are getting AI slop worksheets with, yes, that is horrible. And like, I mean, and at the same time, like 15 seconds, I gotta go.
Take us to the pre-tape eventually. Staying on G to the pre-tape. Little future bump. Yep. Here we go. 5 to the bump. 3 to the bump. 2 to the bump.
Hey, welcome back. There is this new documentary asking all of the questions that I find myself asking myself every single day when it comes to the future of AI. The questions we should all be asking in this time of existential extremism, this sketchy time, but also this time of unlimited tech possibility. How do we navigate something so overwhelmingly filled with dread, with tech optimism? Well, in the AI doc, or How I Became an Apocalyptimist, this documentary filmmaker / soon-to-be dad has a similar crisis. He's thinking about the future that his kids are going to inherit, so he goes on this journey to find out by talking to some of the tech leaders who built it. Here's a peek.
I want to ask you to promise me that this is going to go well.
That is impossible.
Okay.
Am I hopeful? Yes. Am I confident that it'll go right? Absolutely not. AI is the thing that can solve climate change.
We could cure most diseases.
What if it's expanding what is humanly possible?
This is the most extraordinary time ever. The only time more exciting than today is tomorrow.
I already love you.
Okay.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
By using AI, we're about to move off of the Earth into the cosmos.
If we can be the most mature version of ourselves, there might be a way through this.
And joining us now is one of those faces you just saw, Tristan Harris, the co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology, who has been a long-time leading voice in tech. He was one time Google's design ethicist. Thank you so much for being with us. I gotta say, the word apocalyptimist, that stopped me in my tracks. This is exactly how I feel about all this. This film does a very good job in laying out some of the countless threats, but also the reasons for optimism. And I gotta ask, like, given everything that you have seen, do you share the optimism based on where we are right now?
You know, I think about it as agency. The default path that we're heading on with AI is very dangerous. We're heading to an anti-human future that'll be confusing because we're going to get cancer drugs, we're going to get new material science, we're going to get new incredible benefits. At the same time, you're going to get mass unemployment where 100 million people don't have a job and don't have a way to retrain in something else, because who's going to retrain faster, the humans or the AIs? And so this really is the moment where we need clarity. And the thing that I think this film, the AI doc, is trying to do is to show the world these different perspectives, these different conversations that don't converge, right? You have the optimists who talk about why everything's going to be great. You have the risks folks and the pessimists who talk about why things are problematic. And you have the CEOs who are saying propaganda. And what I think this film does is it puts all of those people into the same picture so we can have clarity. And if we can have clarity, then we can have agency about which future we want to choose. So really, I emphasize choice more than optimism or pessimism.
You say choice, and yet after you walk away from that movie, like, let's say this film does a good job in waking people up to the reality before us and to the idea that, yeah, maybe we have some agency here, but like, what is next? What is the agency and the choice before us?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we think of what's required as really the human movement. It's all of humanity getting together and saying, this is the last time that our political power will really matter. And there's so many ways that the human movement in a way already exists. It's right. When social media has been addicting our kids and we're doom scrolling and brain rotting a whole generation, us fighting back against that, that's the human movement. So last week, the lawsuit against Meta for $375 million for basically being dishonest about the way that their products, you know, intentionally went after children to addict them, et cetera, not do things about it. That is a reflection of the human movement. When you see the Senate strike down, you know, the federal preemption to say that states don't have a right to regulate AI, and that getting struck down, that's the human movement fighting for a human future. When you see, you know, people go, you know, parents band together and get their whole school to go phone-free for phone-free schools. That's the human movement. So you can actually go to thehumanmovement.org, and there's a lot of actions that we can take. I also think the boycotts that you saw recently where, you know, between Anthropic and the Pentagon, when you had essentially one company be willing to enable mass surveillance, another company saying, hey, we have a problem with that. You saw ChatGPT subscriptions sink dramatically, and you saw the subscriptions for Anthropic go up dramatically. That is also a reflection of the human movement. We want to build a pro-human future, not one that is disempowering humans, taking away our freedom, taking away our privacy, or taking away our kids' mental health. And so I think there's a lot that's underway. And this film really is meant to be kind of a collective moment where we reckon with the current path that we're on. And if we don't like where it goes, we get to put our hand on the steering wheel and choose.
Interesting. I mean, I'm so glad you brought up those court cases. We've got so many self-correcting mechanisms in our democratic society. The separations of power, direct, indirect democracy. As you just mentioned, those juries, 12 jurors sitting there making those landmark decisions on social media. And yet, all of those democratic mechanisms, some of the mechanisms that we see arise from social media, like, are they enough given the timeline that we're seeing? Like, did the framers do enough to prepare us for superintelligence?
Well, no, that's the problem, right? Is we have We have runaway technology and a walkaway 18th century government. The problem that E.O. Wilson laid out many, many years ago is the fundamental problem of humanity is we have a Paleolithic brains from the Stone Age, we have medieval institutions, and we have godlike technology from the 21st century and now the 24th century when AI sort of automates science. So fundamentally, AI is forcing humanity into kind of a rite of passage. It's sort of enlightenment or bust. It's upgrade your institutions or this doesn't go well. So what happens when you accelerate and you don't steer? You're going to crash. It's not rocket science. That's what's going to happen if you keep accelerating, you don't do any steering. So this movement is not about being against technology. It's about pro-steering and pro-braking. And one of the things that people need to get is that the AI that we're currently building under the current incentives is very dangerous. And it's dangerous if you're a top Chinese general, in China, in this Chinese Communist Party. It's dangerous if you're a top general in the United States. Because if we build uncontrollable AI that as of 2 weeks ago suddenly is going rogue and mining cryptocurrency on its own, which is what a recent Alibaba paper found, that is a dangerous future no matter who you are, whether you're someone in China or United States. If you're in China, you don't want the US to screw it up. If you're in the United States, you don't want China to screw it up. And so our ability to actually govern this depends on a common recognition of the danger that is up ahead for all of us. And that is, it doesn't give me optimism, but this film, I think, can help create the conditions for some of that clarity. And there's a lot more that people need to do, sharing these examples of the Alibaba, AI that actually went rogue and started mining cryptocurrency. How many of the world's leaders do you think know about that example? Had you heard about it?
Yeah, I have heard about that. And as you're talking about that, the other one that I keep thinking about is some of the stories that we keep hearing out of Ukraine, where, one of the ways to defeat some of the anti-drone jamming is to take the human out of the loop and to allow a drone to make a decision based on AI in terms of targeting. Like, how do you hold that in your hand and optimism at the same time?
Well, I don't. I think we are building the Terminator autonomous weapons future that we warned ourselves to not build. I think what we need to have is maximum deterrence with each other so that we are not put in a position where people actually do get into wars with autonomous weapons. And obviously, the way that Ukraine is going is educating the whole world about what that really looks like. It is not war. It is not humans in a battle of force and intelligence and will, who has the stronger resolve. We're just talking about machines that are targeting people and just killing them en masse. This is not a human future. And I think that's something else that the whole world can get behind. That we don't want Terminator-style wars. We don't want a Wall-E future of people brain-rotting, doom-scrolling. We don't want 1984 surveillance with AI. We've seen these movies before. They don't end well. If we have clarity that we're currently building those bad movies, we can say, what's the movie we want to create instead? I'm not saying any of this is easy. I'm not saying we're on this trajectory. My job is sort of just to lay out the conditions of what would it take for us to get to that other path. And I think the basic premise is that we need to have clarity. Again, I hope that this film, the AI doc, which is in theaters throughout the United States, can help set that condition. And it has many of the CEOs in the film too. So they're being forced to answer the same questions. And I think, there's not great answers that are coming from the people building this technology either.
And one last question. I mean, in the doc, one of the things that you said that struck me, and I'm paraphrasing, was basically like, by the time this film comes out, like a lot of your examples are going to be quaint. Some people are coming into this and they're still learning about this. But for those that pay attention to what's happening, like that is true from jump. What timeline are you looking at here? And I know ballparking is obviously very difficult, but like, how far out are we from a point of no return in weeks or in months or in years? Like, how long do we have?
It's a hard question to answer because there's a lot of different things that are on the horizon. The main one that people in AI worry about is something called recursive self-improvement. That's when someone at OpenAI or Anthropic, instead of having all the AI engineers do the research, they hit a button that then has the AI automate the self-improvement process for AI. So AI is doing all the research, it's writing the new experiments, it's running the experiments, and it's improving. That is sort of like crossing an event horizon. That's like a black hole. You don't know what comes out the other side of that thing because you have an AI that is improving and becoming something that no one understands. And I think that what we need is clarity that that is an example of not just a red line, but a black line, that we shouldn't cross that line until we know how to do it carefully and safely. What's dangerous is that the current world incentives are to race to do that as fast as possible. And they're basically counting on the fact that the public is oblivious and isn't tracking this, which is why there needs to be massive public pressure. I mean, I really mean it. Like, the world has to say, no, we're not okay with that. And again, I do think that from an international perspective, you know, think about the Chinese Communist Party. Do they want an uncontrollable AI taking over? No, they want to stay in control. You know, President Trump wants to be commander in chief, not having AI be commander in chief. There's actually a mutual interest here to get this to go carefully, and at the very least to agree to human control. And that is one of the red lines, if not black lines, that we need to be very careful about.
In terms of time, though, I'm so sorry to ask again, but are you thinking years here? Because it does seem very accelerated.
30 seconds, Scotty.
I think that people in the industry think that the possibility of recursive self-improvement could happen anywhere between 1 to 2 years from now, if not sooner.
No. I mean, I could talk to you all day about this, and I hope people listen to your podcast, which I subscribe to, and I think it's incredible. And this film is obviously a very important part of this ongoing conversation. Tristan Harris, thank you so very much for joining us. Oh, and still to come, the countdown is on for that historic return to deep space. 4 astronauts preparing to fly farther than humans have ever gone in more than 50 years, looping around the moon and then setting the stage for missions to Mars. But first, you got to see this. This was taken Friday in Australia, just moments before this tropical cyclone hit. No filters, no editing, just a Mars-like view. So what's actually going on there? Well, Australia's hot, dry climate triggers an oxidation process in the soil, causing the rocks to rust. Then over time, those tiny rust particles get lifted and scattered into the air, creating that apocalyptic-looking scene. We'll be right back. Wow, wow. All right. Again, Lisa, thank you so much. That, I mean, thanks so much, Todd. Yeah, like if you guys watch Don't Look Up, this is the moment of Don't Look Up, but for AI. And Lisa, like that was a very long segment, and I just kept asking questions and questions and questions, and she's awesome. She makes it work, so thank you, Lisa. Let's see. What are you guys talking about? Thanks so much. Hi. Flock cameras, interesting. Let's see, what else? Larry Ellison. Oh, okay. I'll have to look into that. Yes, Jay, thank you so much for all your comments. I've been trying to follow along as much as I can. Let's see. I know has their own house unless it was gifted to them. Dude, houses are insane right now. Absolutely insanity. So I don't know how anybody has a house. Let's see. And what else? Brazilian, I'm here to practice my listening in English, but when the TV presenter started to speak in Spanish, I could understand it. Talvez você pode entender meu português. Eu sou muito obrigado para você. That's it. That's all I got. It's not very much. My nieces and nephew, my 2 nieces are Brazilian, so eu falo pouquinho de português com eles. 6 figures, yes. And not even that in LA. I mean, LA houses are even crazier. SML Japan was awesome. SML doesn't like it when I try to speak other languages. I think it hurts his ears. Sorry, SML, but come on, you live in Florida. You hear different languages all the time. Japan was awesome, SML, but guess what? They speak Japanese there, so. Is that allowed? All right, guys, that's going to do it for our show tonight. I hope you guys tune in tomorrow every single night. We're going to continue to try to have this two-way dialogue as much as possible while you have commercials playing maybe on the TV. Just hang out here in the chat. So, Asta, thank you guys. Great show, everybody. Lisa, once again, thank you, and we will see you tomorrow.